The truth about protein and fiber is that it's not really just about removing fat. It is actually the formula for energy and sustained energy, for metabolic health, for blood sugar balance. And what we know about eating for blood sugar balance, eating for sustained energy, for metabolic health, translates into health throughout the entire body. Even if your health goal has nothing to do with weight management, protein, fiber, quality fat is the formula. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your health coach and host, Jenn Trepeck, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. And joining me today is a dear friend, a workout buddy, and she's been with us before, so potentially a familiar voice for our longtime listeners. Caroline, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited for you to be here.
Me too.
And today, our plan is to uncomplicate wellness. And if you're willing, not to put you on the spot, but we were texting about a couple things, and I was like, hey, want to join me for this conversation? Are you willing to share like some of what we were texting about?
Yes, we were talking about supplements and all the supplements that I take and if they're the right ones and which ones I should be adding on. I was like, I don't think this is working. I don't know what's happening. Send help. So
yeah. And I think it was funny because I was already planning this topic and then you sent that message and I was like, well, you're the perfect person to join me for this because I think there's so much out there. And not just, I mean, there's always been a lot of information out there, but I do feel like now it's even more around nutrition, around wellness, around health. Like, and frankly, regardless of your politics, like there's a lot to contend with in the political conversations around health too. So I wanted to do this conversation in that sort of macro context. And then even in thinking about our episodes, like I'll admit, right, sometimes our episodes and the experts, we could get in the weeds on stuff. And so periodically, I like to do something where we're like, pause, zoom out, right? Like the old KISS principle. And like, you know, maybe takeaway right off the top as it's coming to my brain. If your health plan is adding stress, if it is feeling overwhelming or it's keeping you up at night, it almost doesn't matter what the plan is because all of those things are doing more harm than the health plan can do or can undo.
yeah.
So there you have it. A couple minutes in, done, mic drop. Like, I'm kidding. But I think it just goes to why I feel like this conversation is so important because there's so much out there.
Absolutely. And it just like, I feel like it's going to continue to grow with how much more information is out there. And it's hard to like figure out what is right for you and what is not right for you with how much content's out there.
Yeah. It's funny. That's the first thing I like put in my notes. But really quick, let's tell our members what they're getting. So members, in keeping with the uncomplicate things theme of this episode, I'm sending you details for my personal go-to meal for roasted fish and vegetables. And you've probably heard me say, I don't cook, I make food. Like, that's what I tell people when I'm doing like a discovery call and they're like, I don't want to cook, I don't like to cook. I'm like, great, I don't cook, but I'll make food, you know? Anyway, this recipe is what I mean. It is so simple. I'm going to show you what I do for myself with this week's episode. And I feel like it deserves air quotes around the word recipe because, I mean, you'll see when I send it, but like it's a handful of this, a handful of that, and whatever you kind of have in your fridge. So anyway, it's like I said, it's the I make food, roasted fish and veggies. So if you want this recipe in air quotes, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. When you take advantage of the full offerings, you save far more than that $10 cost, which is why I call it a steal. It's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes and experts. So remember, you're just going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the episode notes because that's a lot easier. Once you're there, it's like a little I agree button, and then support now. Enter your email and payment info and click subscribe, and you're all set. I'll get an email that you've become a member, and then you'll get the email on Friday morning with this week's recipe for my personal go-to meal of roasted fish and veggies. Okay, Caroline, where you started to go was essentially like, how do we cut through the noise, right?
Yeah.
The first thing that's coming to my head is just turn the phone off, but like obviously that's not practical. But
put a time limit.
To some degree. Yeah, put a time limit, or like, you know, put some of those things in a folder to look at for a period of time when you want to think about those things. And what you said before is spot on. It's focus on what you know works for you and your body. Because it's so easy. Like we did the episode, my top 5 tips for digesting nutrition news. And like ask questions of what you see versus hearing or seeing the marketing and then being like, okay, I'll do that too. Or I must be wrong. I'm going to change to that. You know, and I just think the shiny object syndrome is actually what leads us astray.
Absolutely. Something that has been helping me cut through the noise a little bit is actually there are maybe 2 to 3 content creators that I follow. And so I just focus on them. And then pretty much everything else goes out the window because I believe in their mission and I believe in, you know, what they bring to Instagram.
Yeah.
And so it allows me to at least try to be a little bit more grounded with some of the things that the information that I'm ingesting instead of getting overwhelmed by all of the information. Yeah. So that's something that I try to do is just focus on a core amount of content creators.
Yeah. And then even with what they share, then saying, okay, what about that makes sense for what I know about me? What about that would be different? Do I want to experiment with that? Does that sound like it would be helpful or supportive? You know, what's involved in experimenting and playing with that? You know, or maybe I put that on a list for like when I'm ready to maybe put the foot on the gas a little bit and like go the next step.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the key takeaway on shutting out the noise is how critical consistency is.
And like listening to yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Knowing what works for you. And if you're not sure what works for you, pause for a second and ask yourself, because you know the answer. And no expert knows your body better than you do. You know, like I always say, we teach ourselves out of listening to our body. Like we outsource all of that to the rules and we follow the rules and ignore the signs and communication that's coming from our own body. And so the more we can sort of reverse that and say, how can I adjust the rules to fit what I know about my body, you know, and make them your rules, what works for you. I hate even the word rules, like, you know, but like your personal plan, you know.
Yeah.
All right. So in thinking about that, I sort of mentally have this broken up into like nutrition and movement, and then a couple of things that I think people tend to overlook, right, when it comes to all this stuff. So focusing on the nutrition, dare I go an episode without saying it, protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal. But the truth about protein and fiber is that it's not really just about removing fat. It is actually the formula for energy and sustained energy, for metabolic health, for blood sugar balance. And what we know about eating for blood sugar balance, eating for sustained energy for metabolic health translates into health throughout the entire body. Even if your health goal has nothing to do with weight management, protein, fiber, quality fat is the formula.
Yeah. Like I said, every time I feel hungry, I'm like, oh, I need more protein.
Right. I know. I love it. It makes my day that that's what you think of. That came after, too. I think you texted me that after the live event last year.
I did. And honestly, and your voice is still in my head every time. I'm like, oh, gotta go get some protein.
Right. I love it. Hopefully it doesn't drive you nuts.
Keeps me full.
Okay, good.
Keeps me full.
There you go. All right, so protein, fiber, quality fat. On the quality fat front, well, let me back up. Protein is clean, lean protein. Eat what you like. Don't eat what you don't like. Uncomplicate it. You do not have to force feed yourself. That is the opposite of wellness.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Yeah.
Well, and also, I am a big believer that if you're not like enjoying your food and
100%.
Really believe that it is doing good for your body's not going to absorb it the way that it probably should. So you might as well enjoy things, ingest things that you enjoy.
Yes. I'm in 100% agreement.
It goes back to listening to your body.
Right. And to the idea that like health, nutrition, wellness is not about misery. And if that's where you're at, like full stop.
Yeah, we need to take it back.
Period. Yeah. So protein, clean, lean protein. Eat some red meat sometimes. Like I believe that it's about the quality of the red meat, not the fact that it's red meat, right? That's gotten some of the headlines and things like that created all of those documentaries on Netflix. So like uncomplicate it, quality, clean, lean protein. Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. Fiber is the kind of carbohydrates that the body really needs. So yes, your vegetables are carbs. Like sometimes if we start to think of them that way, they satisfy a little differently, but I have a client, we are just a couple weeks in, and even in the first week, she's like eating these vegetables, and it's more than I've been eating, changed my energy, changed my mood, changed how satisfied I am. And I'm like, hell yeah, but like, that's the thing when we start to give our body stuff that it knows what to do with, and she was a great eater before. I'm not saying that, you know what I mean? But sometimes it's just small tweaks, so that's protein, fiber. A meal is really any time we eat. So the difference between a meal and a snack is how much we have at a time. And then therefore, how long till we might need to eat again. So quality fat, we need every day, a couple times a day. A serving of avocado is half of the avocado. A handful of nuts, right? Focus on the omega-3s because, and now this is starting to get in the more complicated part, but the quality fat that we really need, that we don't get enough of in our American world, are omega-3s. We get a lot of omega-6s. Those are some of the other unsaturated fats, those liquid fats at room temperature, right? We get a lot of 6s. We need the 3s. We need an increased commitment to the 3s. So great, right? It's part of why we're choosing fatty fish. It's part of why we might take an omega-3 supplement. We'll come to supplements later, right? But we want to have a little bit of a greater commitment to emphasizing those omega-3s and the quality fat. So eating throughout the day. So many people say to me, I'm not hungry in the morning. I'm not a morning eater. You look like you were going to say something.
I just had your voice. Your voice pops up again in the morning.
And what did it say?
It says, your voice says to me in the morning to eat within the first 2 hours of me waking up and to put something in my body before drinking caffeine. So
yes,
if I'm taking Eli to the park for an hour, even if I don't want to eat something, I'm having like even just a half of a banana and peanut butter to give myself something, So you are also in my head most mornings. Congratulations.
I'm honored. I love it. Yes, we need fuel, something within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up. So that doesn't mean if we're not starving, right? It doesn't mean that you're eating the biggest meal of your day within an hour of waking up. But we're giving the body some quality nutrition, hopefully protein packed, right? That signals to the body that it's daytime, that it can burn fuel, that it is safe, right? All of these signals that we want to send the body. So I guess it brings up the question of fasting. But so I just want to, before we talk about fasting, if we start the day with more a snack amount of food, like half a banana with some nut butter, it means the next time we eat is probably an hour or two later, right? Because that small snack isn't going to last us 4 to 6 hours, right? So if we start with a snack, that's fine. Then we're eating maybe an hour or two later. Maybe that's more of your meal size amount of food that holds you for 4 to 5 hours, And then depending on our day, depending on the meetings, depending on what you have going on, at that point you might say, okay, I'm going to have a meal now and maybe a snack later because my dinner is later, or right? But we can then start to plan it out. And the thing that I like about this in understanding meals versus snacks and how long different food combinations start to last you is that that's where you can get into the like proactive piece of I can make it through my day. These are the meals that last me this long. So if I have a super busy day with a bunch of meetings and I know that I'm not going to be able to eat again for 5 hours, I know that this is the meal that I need to have before all those meetings start.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to like what we were talking about earlier, which is like doing what works for you.
Yeah. So then on the fasting front, the type of fasting that supports, I guess let me say this, it kind of depends why you want to fast. It depends on if you are in a biologically male or a biologically female body. It depends how consistent you're going to be, right? Day to day, the kind of fasting that I'm a really big fan of is finishing food 3 to 4 hours before bed. If you are in the perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause phase, you probably want that to be more like 4 hours before bed, and fast till an hour to 90 minutes after waking up. Those who want to take it to more of an extreme on that, you keep your feeding hours to daylight and your fasting hours to when it's dark out. A lot of the benefits that people talk about with fasting in terms of putting your body into a ketogenic state, the cellular regeneration and things that can happen like autophagy and like NAD production and all these things that happen on a cellular level through fasting tend to happen more with a prolonged fast. So maybe, and now we're getting into the complicated part, right? But if you want to, you could maybe try once or twice a year a fast that's going, 72 hours, which is a lot, right? And there are tools out there and things that you can do that help with that. There are retreats and package thing, like stuff that you can buy and whatever. But point being, on a day-to-day basis, if we stick to that finishing fuel 3 to 4 hours before bed and then getting something in us within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up, we're good. And it's setting our body up to perform during the day when it's supposed to, right? A lot of times when we aren't fueling and expect the body to perform, it's running on cortisol and adrenaline, which does not set us up for truly feeling our best in the long run. And that's where Uncomplicate, you don't have to try to push your food around, and force yourself to only have coffee until a certain time of the day. If you're hungry, your body is sending you signals. Listen to them. I feel like I just went on a soapbox.
I love it.
Also on the nutrition front, just to, again, in the uncomplicated thing, minimize the ultra-processed foods, right? Go for the foods that don't have labels that we need to read. There's also, on the spectrum of processed foods, right? Yogurt is technically a processed food because it comes from milk. Something was done to the milk to turn it into yogurt, right? That's a minimally processed food versus the ultra-processed food of Cheetos and Oreos and Skittles, right? And Wheat Thins and all these other things that have these long ingredient lists. We're going to minimize the ultra-processed foods. And if you're hearing in the news about all of these food additives and all this stuff, I'm a big fan that there is a response to all the voices that have been very loud for a very long time about what is allowed to be in our food. With that said, if it's going to take this for every single ingredient that goes in processed food, it's going to take too long. So the thing that we can do is simply stop buying them. Nothing will move industry faster than if we stop buying those foods. Now, I get that our topic today was uncomplicate, and so in order to stop buying those foods, we have to read those labels, so I get it, right? But if we just focus on not buying foods or minimizing how many foods we buy that have all these things that we need to read, great, done, check the box and onward. Cool?
Easy enough.
Okay, great. Water. 8 ounce glasses of water. If you have a filter, filter it. But you don't have a filter, don't complicate it. Just drink the water, right? A Stanley, I know everybody loves their Stanleys. Don't complicate it. Just drink the water. Maybe the Stanley helps you, but if you feel like, not having a Stanley is like, relax, right? Nobody likes to be told to relax, so I take that back. But, right, like we don't have to complicate it. We're hearing about microplastics in the water. Like, yeah, sure, glass would be better. Also, drink the water, right? Like, let's just drink some water. I'm like, in my head, I'm picturing all the videos on social media that are going to come at me about saying, like, ignore the microplastics. But, like, don't at me. I'm just saying, we can overcomplicate and we don't need to. All right, movement. I mark every episode as explicit because I have a potty mouth. And so I'm going to give everybody a warning right now that if you have children listening, earmuffs or something, movement, just fucking move.
I knew that was coming.
I know. I know. As we always say, move your mass. Yes, build muscle. Muscle dictates metabolism. Building muscle doesn't have to require weights. It doesn't have to require a gym. It doesn't have to be a HIIT workout that's super intense. It doesn't have to be doing something you hate doing. Walking is amazing. Also, there's nothing actually magical about 10,000 steps a day. Uncomplicate the movement. Just move. Like, we have a nutrition nugget called 30-30-30. It's 3 exercises, 30 reps of each. I did a whole bunch. They all took less than 2 minutes. Do it. Do it in those 2 minutes before the next Zoom meeting starts. 10 minutes here and there are incredible, right? I always say, like, we've heard sitting is the new smoking, right? The thing that we're doing that we don't realize is, like, slowly killing us. Yes, because it's not human to sit all day, right? Well, it's also not human to sit all day and go berserk for an hour. So in fact, small bits of movement regularly throughout the day is actually the most human movement there is. It's actually what happens in the blue zones, the parts of the world where people live the longest, right? Movement is just a part of their day. They live in places that are very walkable and there are hills. And so they inherently end up with resistance training walking up a hill. Uncomplicate the movement and just move. What am I missing? What are you hearing in the world of social media or whatever that's complicating movement?
Ooh, I'm hearing a lot of things about cardio, and I also hear a lot of things about like weight training for women and how much you should do and when you should do it. I think if you're not enjoying it, then it doesn't matter. Like, it goes back to
Facts.
the same exact thing with what you are consuming. If you're not genuinely enjoying your workout, then I don't think it's actually helping you. And I also think
agree.
it's totally okay that your preference for movement changes over time.
Yes.
And I just had a birthday. And so entering into a new decade, I think about, what I was doing 10 years ago and what I crave to do now. And it's really different. But my body also doesn't look that different either. Like, you could not pay me to go to Barry's or SoulCycle. I'm sure that a lot of people really enjoy that, and that's wonderful. It's not my thing anymore.
But that's just it. Do the things that you enjoy.
Exactly.
Yes.
And if it changes over time, that is also perfectly fine.
Yes. And going back to listening to your body, if your body is saying, I don't want to do this, if it feels like you are dragging yourself to the activity, let that be a signal that we listen to and say, maybe it's time to find something else. Sometimes it's different times of the month that we crave different kinds of activity. Sometimes it's different phases of life. It's all good, right? I hate to use this phrase because I don't want it to be misconstrued, but this is what's coming to my head, so I'm going to say it. Lower the bar of what counts.
But it goes back to what, when you live an active lifestyle, right? When you walk to the grocery store, when you choose to take the stairs versus the elevator, those are small things that then it all counts at the end of your day.
Yes. And I think living in a city the way we do, where we do walk to the grocery store, or except me, I just have it delivered, right? So like, I don't even walk the aisles of the grocery store if I go grocery shopping anymore. But still, there's an active pace to life in a city that if you're in a place where you drive everywhere, then maybe it does require a little bit different thought process around moving more. Okay, great. Pros and cons, give and take, because of what our lives look like. But with that said, you probably have steps in your house that I don't have. And so you could go up and down the steps in your house a few times.
You can also park
we
far
can find
away
it
at the
anywhere.
grocery store.
Right.
Yeah. So again,
Exactly.
I feel like the theme that like is popping up like again is like you have to do what is going to work for you. Like what works for you might not work for me. And that's fine.
And that's part of uncomplicating, because I think it feels complicated when we're trying to do something that doesn't work for us. Square peg, round hole. No, thank you. All right, so nutrition and movement. Things that people really complicate or ignore: stress, sleep, and supplementation. So that's what we're going to talk about really quick. Let's highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Layered Jewelry for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. The modern woman is multifaceted, taking on many important roles in the various aspects of her life. Inspired by her own multi-layered life as a busy mom, trendsetter, entrepreneur, and influencer, Amber Ridinger McLaughlin set out to create a line of luxury jewelry that lets women create their unique style and celebrate their own beautiful layers. Layered is luxurious yet affordable, the perfect combination for the modern woman. Layered allows you to mix, match, stack, and layer pieces that make you feel empowered and beautiful. Each piece is handcrafted to be luxurious, unique, and exquisite just for you. So maybe it's time for a little spring refresh. I love adding a new little piece of jewelry into the mix. One of the things that I love most about Layered is that it's really not going to break the bank, but it looks like it could. So also a great gift. Layered uncomplicates gift giving. See what I did there?
I like it.
Thank you. All right, but for real, Layerd's latest collection has all of these vintage-inspired designs. People will ask you about these pieces when you wear them. It happens to me every time. And because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener, you get 10% off and free shipping. So simply text the word LAYERED, LAYERED, to 844-947-4846. You'll get the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word LAYERED, LAYERED, to 844-947-4846 to get this handcrafted, luxurious, and affordable jewelry at 10% off and free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. All right. Stress, the physiological response that was designed to save our lives, now contributes to our demise. And whenever I say that, I know I'm feeling dramatic.
I don't think it's dramatic at all. I think it's so accurate.
But it's because our lives are complicated, right? Like stress before was literal life or death situations. Our body reacts the same way. Everybody's heard it now a million times. The body reacts the same way to an email and a text message as it once did to being chased by a lion or, what? You're laughing.
I just remember there's a tone that I used to get at one point that if I heard that tone again, it would totally send me. I would be running from the lion. So, yeah.
Yes. Like I had a different ringtone for people I worked for at different times in my life. And if I heard, like I have also been out and somebody else has that ringtone and I have like literal fear in my eyes.
Yeah, because your body remembers. Your physical body remembers those responses. And even if you know that that's not happening to you objectively, your body does not know that.
I know. And so what happens when we're stressed, especially right when we're stressed, when we're in that fight or flight response? Every body function that is not critical to survival of the next 10 minutes, 20 minutes, turns off. Okay, so our immune system turns off. Our digestive system turns off. Our detoxification system turns off. Growing hair and nails turns off, right? Like all of these body systems that are not critical to surviving the next 20 minutes are offline. Well, now what's happening is that we're getting the stress signal to turn off, right? This stress response, this arc that's supposed to be about 20 minutes. But before we can reach the end of that, we're hit with another one. And then we're hit with another one. And essentially we're like building up this iceberg of stress, and the waterline is our awareness of the stress. And the waterline just keeps getting higher and higher and higher as the iceberg keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. How was that analogy?
I mean, I just the visual.
Right. So what it means is that we have to put things into our lives. And by the way, for everything we're talking about, we have episodes on every single one of these, right? Where you could deep dive into each one. But to uncomplicate it, make sure that there are a couple things in every day that send signals to your body that it is safe. Deep, slow breaths, right? 2 to 3 times before you start eating. What a great time to turn off fight or flight and turn on rest and digest than before we eat, right? Quality nutrition helps send signals that your body is not in danger. Movement helps us work through that stress response. Fresh air, feet on the ground, nature, meditation, psychotherapy. Find some outlets, find some things a couple times in your day. We got to do some of this stuff to help the body manage that stress response, to send signals of safety to the body. A piece of this that also comes from the blue zones that people ignore is social connection and community. Key in longevity, key for health, purpose, community, connection, finding value, right? We've never been more isolated, and we've never seen greater levels of mental health challenge, right? Specifically anxiety and depression at the top of the list. Social connection and community is so important and part of managing that stress, right? There is actual value in talking to that friend and just venting, you know?
Yeah. I feel like there was something I saw recently that was like 12 minutes of just chatting with a friend will totally
Yes.
change
I've
how
heard
you
8
feel.
minutes. I've heard 12 minutes. Simon Sinek, he was the one, right? He's great. He's written, Start With Why. His TED Talks have gone viral. Anyway, he had this whole thing recently of like with his friends in a group text, they'll send a message of like, do you have 8 minutes? And it's sort of their easy way of saying, I need to talk without having to feel that vulnerable. Like it's easier to say, do you have 8 minutes or whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. And like you show up and you just listen to someone.
Totally. I mean, after like we have dinner,
I know.
I mean, I'm not going to
We
speak
are
for
therapy.
you, but like we feel great. We could like walk on
Right.
water after our dinners.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel.
Yes. And our mental health, by the way, is also supported by everything else that we're doing. It's supported by the movement. It's supported by the quality nutrition, right? Like all the things support the mental health too. The whole body is connected, but especially when it comes to that stress piece. If you needed an excuse to get a sitter and go out for the night, you're welcome. Okay. There it is. It's for your health. All right. Sleep. I call sleep the ultimate biohack. Right? Spoiler alert, you go to the episode called The Ultimate Biohack. It's actually about sleep. But quantity and quality, right? We also have an episode called Sleep on It where we walked through all of the things that happen when we sleep. Sleep is detoxification. Sleep is memory. Sleep is cleaning the brain, cleaning the body. If we don't sleep well, we do not detoxify well. If we do not detoxify well, we do not age well. When we don't sleep, are you with me on my little like chain of events? Okay. When we don't sleep or sleep well or sleep enough, it also makes us insulin resistant. We are resistant to the hormone leptin that tells us when we're satisfied and done eating, right? Like it's not a coincidence that when we don't sleep well, we feel insatiable. And what we crave are all the sugar-laden foods and the caffeine that are going to give us that perception of energy, right? And fast fuel and fast energy. Couple things to make sleep, uncomplicate the sleep. Just set an alarm to wake up at the same time every day. Your nighttime stuff will fall into place if you just start to wake up at the same time every day. First morning light does amazing things for our circadian rhythm, for our energy, for our body's signals down to every cell in the body. So wake up at the same time every day, get some light into your eyeballs. Uncomplicate it.
Not your phone light.
Right, not the phone light, which I will admit, I am the worst about that, but we're all a work in progress, right? We're all making progress every day. Speaking of the phone, so limiting the blue light later in the day, super helpful, right? That blue light sends daylight signals to our brain, to our eyes, and like that circadian rhythm, right? So what ends up happening is we're trying to go to sleep, or we theoretically want to go to sleep, but we're sending signals through our eyes to the body that it's supposed to be awake and running. Confusion. So we can limit the blue light, limit even the bright overhead light, start to use lamps, ending food, right? We talked about that before. Now, with that said, if you find yourself waking up like 3 to 5 a.m. consistently, it might mean that you need a nighttime snack before bed. Again, start to pay attention to what's happening, and then we can tweak. But to uncomplicate it, do these other elements first and see what happens at 3 to 5 a.m., right? A nighttime routine so that you have this wind down to help. Cool, dark room, right? And over time, eventually, going to bed at the same time every day will help too. What else do we need to uncomplicate about sleep?
For me, I feel like with nighttime routines, if you stack things, like stack habits, it makes it less daunting. So like right on social media, we see everyone's evening routines, all of the things that they do. And so sometimes it can be like daunting, meditating, putting your feet up against the wall, journaling, gusha, all of them, like all of them. And so what I try to do is I try to stack a couple of them and do them at the same time. So it's less daunting. So I put my feet up against the wall and I do my gua sha at the same time.
Yeah.
And like,
great.
It doesn't take as long. So I think stacking your routine, like the habits within your routine.
Yes.
I personally find it to be much more manageable.
Yeah, exactly. And not every night has to be every single thing, right? Like as long as there's some sort of wind down, great. Check the box. Uncomplicate it. All right, supplementation. This is a doozy and could be an entire episode onto itself. Right? So to uncomplicate it, here's what I'll say. Work with someone. Like I'm not the only person who knows these things. There are a ton of people out there. I don't charge for a discovery call, whether that's for coaching or supplements, right? Find someone who can help you hone in on the best place for you to start. In fact, in the episode notes for this episode, I am going to put in there a link to a 60-second health quiz. It is 3 questions. Right? It is not the ultimate in personalization, but it's a 60-second health quiz that can get you on the path and putting one foot in the direction and see what happens. It's going to make some recommendations from there, right? I can also follow up with you when you complete that health quiz. 60 seconds, get some direction. And I'm going to put that in the episode notes for this episode for everybody. So not just our members, but everybody. The thing on supplements is that quality matters. Quality of the ingredients, quality of the formulations, quantity of the active ingredients, like all of this stuff matters. There is nothing that you can't make less expensive by jeopardizing quality. So when it comes to supplementation, this isn't necessarily where we want to say, I'm just going to go with the cheapest one. It also doesn't mean that the most expensive one is the best either. Right? It's that Goldilocks of finding, the right thing, finding that balance. I think there are certain foundational supplements, that probably help a lot of people across the board. With that said, I'm not going into tremendous detail on this because in an effort to uncomplicate, everybody needs to remember we cannot supplement our way out of poor nutrition. So get the beginning pieces of our conversation in place, right? Focusing on the supplementation without those other pieces is like stepping over $100 bills to pick up pennies, right? It doesn't mean, now I will say, right, there are certain things where if we can start on a supplement and it helps move us in the direction of wanting to do more and do these other things. I love that. Take the 60-second health quiz for where to start, right? Once we get some foundations in place, the nutrition, the movement, the sleep, the stress management, a foundational supplement to fill in the gaps where our nutrition falls short. Then you can go in with something more targeted, right? Then we can focus on probiotics or detoxification or anti-aging or whatever it is. But the foundations have to be there first, because otherwise you could end up with, no offense, and I don't mean to put you on the spot or blow, but it was like what you texted me earlier, Caroline, of like, I don't think this is working, And unfortunately, that's really common. And I think every ad that I see on social media for supplements, a majority of the influencers who are touting their supplements, if it's starting to feel complicated, pause, right? If they're telling you that nobody else is going to tell you this thing, pause, right? Like all of those things make my spidey sense go up. If they say this is the one thing that's going to change everything, pause. You're nodding. Tell me what you're thinking.
It makes me think that like when you focus on the other things before the supplements, that like there's a chance that you probably won't take as many supplements as you think you need.
Correct. Yeah. Like we do have to fill in the gaps, right? Because the quality of our like an apple today doesn't have the same nutrients as an apple from even 30 years ago, let alone 50, 60, 70 years ago, right? But you're 100% right. I see people who are supplementarians who, have cabinets upon cabinets full of supplements, who are taking a million things, spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month, not knowing what's working, why they're taking certain things. Like I also heard about somebody recently who ended up with liver issues because of the supplements that she was taking. We just want to uncomplicate it and recognize what gaps we're looking to fill, what else is happening, where could we use some extra support above and beyond all the other pieces that we've put in place. Okay, we did a thing. We've uncomplicated wellness, hopefully, right? Caroline, final thought, something to wrap this up?
I know I've said this before, but I just think like listening to your body, listening to a few people that you trust and like ultimately wants the best for you, I feel like is the place that you have to start.
Yeah, the fundamentals: nutrition, movement, sleep, stress, supplementation. And
it has to feel good. Like the goal is to feel good. And so if you're not feeling good in one of those areas, pause.
Yeah. And right. And I would say also define what feeling good is for you. Does that mean not needing coffee to get through the day? Does that mean not having the afternoon slump? Does that mean having energy after the workday to show up with kindness and generosity for other people in your life? Does that mean not dragging yourself out of bed in the morning? Does that mean looking forward to your exercise, right? Like what does feeling good look like in real life?
Yeah.
And I will say a lot of times people say to me, I didn't even know that feeling this way was possible.
Oh.
Greatest gift.
Yeah.
And in an effort to continue to uncomplicate, recognize that the whole body is connected. So anything we're doing for one thing, one part of the body, is actually supporting everything in the body. So pick one thing, put the blinders on, uncomplicate it, get that one thing into your life so that it happens whether you think about it or not, and then add the next thing. These to me are the seemingly small swings that are actually home runs. Here I go with these analogies again. But
you're on fire.
It's working.
It is working.
Right. Apparently, this is what happens. All right. Shall we preview our nutrition nugget?
Yeah.
All right. On Friday, in this week's bonus episode, Nutrition Nugget, it's all about the blue mind theory. Have you ever heard of it?
The blue mind theory?
Yeah.
No. I just had like the Blue Man Group come across my brain though, which is not the same
also
thing.
They like not the same thing, and they also closed down when I don't know what finally closed across the world. No more Blue Man Group. Anyway, Blue Mind Theory is not the Blue Man Group. But I would say most of us has actually experienced the Blue Mind Theory. We just didn't realize that it had a name. And that's what I realized when I first heard the phrase. I was like, oh. So I made a note, and then we're going to talk about it on Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when it goes live on Friday morning. And friends, if you are not already, join our membership by going to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community. Most importantly, it supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for my personal go-to meal of roasted fish and veggies. So until next week, remember, food noise, nutrition noise, health noise can make wellness feel overwhelming. And sometimes all we need to do is pause, take a deep breath, step back, and focus on the fundamentals. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.